Have you ever imagined what it's like to come home and realize that you never really left the war? Think about it. You're lying in your bed, embraced by someone you love, but your mind remains trapped on a battlefield thousands of miles away. The screams don't stop. The explosions echo, and no matter how hard you try, you simply can't escape. This is the reality for thousands of American soldiers who returned from the war, but never truly returned. Fallujah, Iraq, November 2004. The heat is stifling, the air thick with dust and smoke. Josh Miller, a young soldier of only 24 years old, is crouched in an improvised trench. Around him, absolute chaos reigns. Explosions tear through the air, shrapnel flies in all directions, desperate screams mingle with the deafening sound of automatic gunfire. Josh clutches his rifle to his chest, his heart pounding so hard he can feel it in his temples. He is fighting to survive. Every second there is an eternity. And then suddenly something changes. The noise continues, but Josh can no longer hear properly. Everything becomes distant, muffled as if he were underwater. He turns his head to the side, searching for Marcus, his best friend since basic training. Marcus, the guy who always had a joke ready, even in the tensest moments. Marcus, who had just shown him a picture of his twin sons, whom he had yet to meet in person. Marcus was there, a few meters away, but he wasn't moving. Have you ever been through this? That moment when the whole world seems to freeze and you realize that nothing will ever be the same again? Josh stares intently at his friend's body. There are no screams, no movement, just silence. A silence that screams louder than any explosion. In that instant, something inside Josh Miller shatters. It's not something physical. It's not something you can see. But it's real. It's profound. It's permanent. A part of his soul simply breaks and is never rebuilt in the same way again. Months later, Josh is on a plane back to the United States. He survived. He is alive. But as the plane touches down on American soil and the people around celebrate, applaud, cry tears of joy, Josh stares out the window with empty eyes. He feels nothing. Or perhaps he feels everything at once. I'm back home, he would later think. But a part of me never left that desert. Can you grasp the gravity of that? A man physically present, but emotionally trapped in a war that officially had already ended for him. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. Josh Miller's story isn't unique. It's shared by hundreds of thousands of veterans who returned home carrying invisible scars, silent battles that no one can see, but that destroy entire lives. And the most incredible thing? Some of them managed to do the impossible. They rose from the ashes of war, transformed unbearable pain into purpose, and found light in the darkest hell you can imagine. But to understand how Josh went from a broken soldier, haunted by war memories, to someone completely transformed, you need to know what happened when he set foot on American soil. Because it was there, far from the bombs and gunfire, that the real war began. Phoenix, Arizona, Josh Miller's hometown. The city he so longed to see again during the long nights in Iraq. But when he finally walks through the door, embraces his wife Sarah, and holds his two young children in his arms, something is terribly wrong. He's there, physically present, but it's as if he's watching everything from afar, through a fogged-up window. The children laugh. Sarah smiles with tears in her eyes. The whole family celebrates the hero's return. But Josh is absent. He feels like he's betraying everyone there because no matter how hard he tries, he simply can't feel the joy he should feel. At night, when the house finally falls silent and everyone is asleep, the real hell begins. Josh closes his eyes, but he can't rest. The images return with brutal violence. Marcus's face, the sound of explosions, the smell of gunpowder and blood. He wakes up in a cold sweat, his heart racing, his breathing erratic. Sarah wakes up startled beside him, tries to touch him, but he instinctively pulls away. "It's okay," he lies. "It was just a nightmare." But it wasn't just a nightmare. It was his reality now, a reality from which there was no escape. And look, before we continue, I need to tell you something. If this topic resonates with you, if you've somehow gone through something similar, or know someone who is battling invisible demons, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Tell your story, share what you're feeling, because you know what happens when you do that. You create a support network. You show other people that they are not alone, and that's exactly the message this channel wants to convey. Your participation here, whether by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or simply leaving a sincere comment, is what allows this content to reach more people who need to hear these stories. Every like, every subscription, every word in the comments helps the algorithm understand that this type of message matters, that lives matter, that transformation is possible. So if you believe in this, if you want to be part of this community that believes in second chances and impossible rebirths, hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel, because you won't want to miss what's coming next in this story. Back to Josh. The days start turning into weeks, and the weeks into months. And as time goes by, instead of getting better, everything gets worse. Josh starts missing work. He had gotten a job at a construction company, but he can't concentrate. The noise of the tools, the metallic sound, everything takes him back to Fallujah. He has panic attacks in the middle of the workday. His colleagues don't understand. "Get over it, man. You're back. You're home now." But how do you get over something that never lets you go? Sarah tries to be understanding. She really tries. But how do you explain it to someone who was never there? How do you make her understand that the man who returned isn't the same one who left? Josh begins to isolate himself. He goes down to the basement and spends hours there alone, drinking to try and erase the memories. Alcohol becomes his only refuge, the only thing that makes the noise stop, even if only temporarily. But with each bottle, he drifts further away from his family, further from life, further from himself. Sarah woke up every night to screams. They weren't screams of physical pain, but something far worse. It was the sound of a man being torn apart inside, fighting invisible enemies that only he could see. She reached out to touch Josh, but he flinched as if her touch burned. "Don't touch me," he'd say, his eyes wide, lost somewhere between Phoenix and Fallujah. And Sarah wept silently, because the man sleeping beside her was no longer the man she had married. The children, too young to understand, only knew that their dad was different. He didn't play anymore. He didn't smile. When they ran to hug him, Josh would tense up, as if he were expecting an ambush. The children began to fear their own father, and this destroyed Josh inside in a way that no war ever could. He looked at those innocent little faces and thought, "They deserve better than this. They deserve better than me." The hidden truth about post-traumatic stress disorder is that it doesn't choose when to strike. Josh could be at the supermarket buying milk when the sound of a car slamming its door threw him back onto the battlefield. He could be watching television with his family when the noise of fireworks in the neighborhood made him throw himself to the ground, seeking cover. Sarah tried to explain it to the neighbors, to her friends, but how do you explain the inexplicable? How do you make someone understand that the war doesn't end when the soldiers go home? It just changes address. At work, the situation became unbearable. Josh had landed a position at a construction company, an honest job that paid the bills, but he simply couldn't function. The sound of jackhammers, chainsaws, and pneumatic hammers was like a constant trigger firing off memories he desperately tried to bury. He began having panic attacks in the middle of the workday. His supervisor, a tough man named Tom, who had never served in the military, had no patience for such things. Either you concentrate or you'll have to look for another place, Tom would say, without even imagining the devastating impact those words had. And then came the inevitable day. Josh was operating a drill when he had such an intense flashback that he dropped the tool on the ground and ran from the construction site. He ran for blocks, aimlessly, without a destination, just trying to escape the ghosts that haunted him. When he finally stopped, he was sweaty, trembling, and completely lost in a neighborhood he didn't recognize. He called Sarah, but couldn't form complete sentences. She went to pick him up, found her husband sitting on the curb, hugging his knees, rocking back and forth like a frightened child. That day, Josh was fired, and with the dismissal came the overwhelming shame of not being able to provide for his family. The downward spiral gained momentum. Josh began spending entire days in the basement. He transformed that space into a bunker, a refuge where he could be alone with his demons. Beer crates piled up in the corners, empty whiskey bottles rolled across the cold concrete floor. He installed an old mattress down there and stopped going upstairs to sleep with Sarah. "It's better this way," he'd say. "You don't have to see me like this." But the truth was, Josh was giving up. He was slowly drowning, and worse still, he had stopped fighting. Sarah tried everything. She searched for information, read articles about PTSD, talked to other spouses of veterans. She begged Josh to seek help, made appointments with therapists, but he always found an excuse to cancel. "I don't need anyone telling me I'm crazy," he would yell when she insisted. "I just need everyone to leave me alone." And Sarah, exhausted and crying, would take the children and go to their room, leaving Josh alone with his monsters. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what happened in the following months reveals something crucial about the journey of self-destruction and how it can completely consume a person. Josh wasn't just drinking to forget. He was drinking to punish himself. In his mind, he was guilty for surviving when Marcus died, guilty for not being able to be the father and husband his family deserved, guilty for existing while so many others didn't have that chance. And this guilt was like a cancer, growing, spreading, devouring everything good that still remained in him. The arguments with Sarah became more frequent and more violent, not physical violence, but words that cut deeper than any knife. "You don't love me anymore," Sarah screamed in despair. "I try, Josh, I really try, but you won't let me in." And Josh, his eyes red from drinking and tears, replied, "You don't understand. You'll never understand. There was nothing you could do." And she knew he was right. She didn't understand. And that distance between them grew with each passing day, each sleepless night, each empty bottle. His friends stopped calling. His family stopped visiting. Everyone had an opinion, of course. He needs to pull himself together. Other veterans can. Why can't he? He's using the war as an excuse. People talk a lot when they haven't the slightest idea what they're talking about. And Josh heard these things through Sarah, through conversations he shouldn't have listened to, and each comment was another brick in the wall he was building around himself, a wall that wouldn't let anyone in, but also wouldn't let him out. December 2006. 2 years since Josh returned from Iraq. 2 years that felt like 2 decades. Sarah finally made the hardest decision of her life. She took the children and went to live with her mother. It wasn't abandonment, it was survival. "I love you, Josh," she said. The suitcases already in the car, the children crying in the back seat. "But I can't watch you destroy yourself and our children in the process. When you're ready to accept help, I'll be here. But until then, I need to protect our babies." And she left, leaving Josh alone in that house that now looked like a mausoleum. Josh moved into a tiny apartment in Tempe, a depressing place, with thin walls where he could hear the neighbors arguing, children crying, life happening around him while his was completely still. He stopped shaving. He stopped showering regularly. He stopped eating properly. The refrigerator only contained beer and some leftover Chinese food that had already gone moldy. The apartment smelled of mold, sweat, and despair. Josh spent his days lying on the couch, watching nothing on television, drinking until he passed out, waking up in the middle of the night screaming and starting the cycle again. And then that night arrived. Christmas Eve, 2006. While families across the country gathered, exchanged gifts, laughed together, Josh was alone in that pathetic apartment. He had drunk more than usual, which was saying a lot. The walls seemed to be closing in on him. The voices in his head wouldn't stop. Marcus was there, calling for him. Other faces of soldiers he knew who didn't return, all of them looking at him, judging him, asking why he had the right to live when they didn't. Josh opened the bedside table drawer. Inside was the Glock he had bought months before, telling himself it was only for protection. But he knew. He always knew what that gun was really for. He held it, felt the cold weight of the metal in his palm. It was so simple, so easy. One decision, one movement, and all that pain would be over. There would be no more nightmares, no more guilt, no more disappointment in Sarah's eyes, no more fear in his children's eyes. Tears streamed down Josh's face as he gripped the gun. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered to the void. "I'm sorry, kids. I tried, I really tried, but I can't anymore." He placed the gun against his temple, closed his eyes, and his finger began to press the trigger. The whole world shrank to that moment, to that choice, to that second that would define everything. And then the phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the silence of the apartment like a lightning bolt. Josh hesitated, his finger still on the trigger, but without the necessary pressure. The phone kept ringing, once, twice, 3 times. Who the hell would be calling him on Christmas Eve? He had no friends left. His family had given up on him. Sarah didn't call anymore. Who could it be? On the 4th ring, Josh lowered his gun and picked up the phone. "Hello?" His voice came out hoarse, broken. On the other end of the line, a male voice, firm but gentle. "Josh, it's Michael. Michael Rodriguez. We met at that veterans reunion a few weeks ago. Man, I know it's Christmas Eve and you must be busy with your family, but I was thinking about you, you know. I wanted to know how you're doing." Josh remained silent. He vaguely remembered Michael. An older guy, an ex-Marine who had shared his story at one of the only meetings Josh attended before giving it all up. Michael had talked about how he lost everything after returning from Afghanistan, but found his way back. Josh hadn't paid much attention at the time. He was too busy wallowing in self-pity. "Josh, are you there?" Michael asked, the concern evident in his voice. And something in that concern, something in that simple act of someone caring enough to call, broke something inside Josh. He looked at the gun he still held in his other hand and began to cry. Not that restrained, silent crying, but deep, desperate sobs that came from the depths of his soul. I was about to... Josh couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Michael understood immediately. "Where are you, brother? Give me your address. I'm coming over right now." "No, you don't need to. It's Christmas Eve. You must be with your family," Josh tried to argue weakly. "My family will understand," Michael interrupted. "You're my family too, Josh. All of us who went through this are family. Now, give me that address before I trace this call." 20 minutes later, Michael was knocking on Josh's apartment door. When Josh opened it, Michael didn't say anything. He simply walked in and embraced the broken man. And Josh, who hadn't truly been embraced in months, who hadn't felt genuine human connection in so long, completely broke down in that hug. They stood there, 2 soldiers, 2 survivors, 2 men who understood each other's pain without needing words. Michael stayed with Josh all night. He didn't preach. He didn't judge. He was just present. They talked about the war, about memories, about guilt. Michael shared his own journey through the hell of PTSD and how he had found hope on the other side. "I'm not going to lie. Into you, Josh," Michael said, as the sun began to rise over Tempe. "It's not easy. There's no magic cure, but there is a way back, and you don't have to walk it alone." That was the first time in 2 years that Josh considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could survive this. Not just survive, but truly live again. Michael didn't leave him alone for the next few days. He came back every day, brought food, helped Josh clean the apartment, and most importantly, gave him something that had been lost long ago: hope. When the new year arrived, Josh made a decision. He would go to the veterans' reunion that Michael constantly invited him to. Just once, he thought, just to see. On the appointed day, Josh was so nervous that he almost gave up 3 times before actually entering the Phoenix Community Church building. It was a simple space, with chairs arranged in a circle, hot coffee in thermos flasks, and a dozen men and women carrying the same invisible weight that Josh carried. He sat in the back, hoping to go unnoticed, but Michael made a point of introducing him. "Guys, this is Josh. Josh, these are your brothers and sisters." And one by one they shared their stories, and Josh realized something devastating and liberating at the same time. He wasn't alone. All those people in that room understood. They truly understood. Not with distant empathy, but with visceral and painful knowledge. A woman named Jennifer spoke about how she couldn't leave her house without having panic attacks. A man named David shared how he had lost his wife and children because he couldn't stop drinking. Another veteran, Tommy, spoke openly about his 3 suicide attempts. And Michael, at the end, looked at everyone and said, "War doesn't have to be the end of our story. It can be the beginning of something new, if we let it." For the first time in years, Josh felt something different from the constant pain. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was something like belonging. As if he had found his tribe, people who wouldn't judge him, who wouldn't tell him to get over it, who wouldn't pity him, but who would walk alongside him. When the meeting ended, Josh approached Michael. "I want to try," he said, his voice still weak, but with a nascent determination. "I don't know if I'll succeed, but I want to try." Michael smiled, that smile of someone who knows exactly what it means to take the first step. "That's all you need for now, brother. Just the will to try. We'll build the rest one day at a time." And that's how Josh Miller's journey of rebuilding began. Not with a grand revelation, not with an instant miracle, but with a simple decision to try, and with people around him willing to catch him when he stumbled. Michael connected him with Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a psychologist specializing in PTSD who worked specifically with veterans. The first consultation was brutal. Dr. Rodriguez didn't accept half-truths or evasions. She made Josh confront the memories he had spent years trying to bury. "You can't heal what you don't face," she would say. And session after session, Josh began to unearth all those traumatic experiences, process them, and slowly, very slowly, learn to live with them. He participated in exposure therapy, where he gradually exposed himself to the triggers that previously paralyzed him. Loud noises, crowds, open spaces, each exposure was a battle, but unlike the battles in Fallujah, these he was winning. He learned breathing techniques to control panic attacks. He learned to recognize when a flashback was starting and how to anchor himself in the present. He learned that having PTSD didn't make him weak or broken, but human. But there was a missing piece in Josh's transformation, and it was spiritual. Before the war, he had been raised in the church. He had a simple but genuine faith. But somewhere between the explosions and Marcus's death, he had lost that connection. How could he believe in a God who allowed so much destruction? How could he have faith when he had seen the worst of humanity? Michael, who had also gone through this crisis of faith, gently encouraged him. "Maybe God didn't cause that destruction, Josh. Maybe he's waiting to help you rebuild." Josh started attending church again, not out of obligation, but out of necessity. He needed something bigger than himself to hold on to. And little by little, in quiet moments of prayer, in conversations with the pastor who was also a Vietnam veteran, Josh began to rebuild his faith. It wasn't the same innocent faith as before. It was something deeper, forged through suffering, tested by fire, but for that very reason, stronger. 6 months had passed. Josh was better, significantly better, but he still had a long way to go. That's when he had a revelation that would change not only his life, but the lives of hundreds of others. He was returning from a therapy session when he saw a man sitting on the sidewalk, dirty, with torn clothes, clearly homeless. Josh was going to walk past, as he always did, but something made him stop. He looked more closely and saw the tattoo on the man's arm, USMC, United States Marine Corps. Josh approached. "Brother, did you serve?" The man looked up, and Josh saw the same emptiness he had seen in the mirror for so many years. "Afghanistan. 2 tours, the man replied hoarsely. "And you?" "Iraq, Fallujah." They shared a look of mutual understanding. Josh sat down beside him on the sidewalk. "What's your story, brother?" And the man, who said his name was Robert, told his story. Severe PTSD. He lost his family. He lost his job. He lost everything, exactly like Josh almost did. "Are you getting help?" Josh asked. Robert gave a bitter laugh. "Help? Man, the system doesn't care about us. We come back, serve the country, and then are forgotten on the streets." And it was in that moment, sitting on that dirty sidewalk in Phoenix, that Josh found his purpose. He couldn't have saved Marcus in Fallujah. That would be with him forever. But he could save Robert, and he could save all the other Roberts who were lost in the streets. Josh helped Robert get up that day, took him to eat, connected him with Dr. Rodriguez, introduced him to the support group. And while doing all that, Josh felt something he hadn't felt since before the war: purpose. He had a mission again. In the following months, Josh began to dedicate more and more time to searching for homeless veterans. He went to shelters, to known meeting points, to the darkest streets of Phoenix and its surroundings. And every time he found someone with that familiar look of despair and trauma, he would sit, listen, and offer a bridge back to life. Many rejected him at first. Distrust was deeply ingrained, but Josh was persistent. He returned, week after week, showing that he cared, showing that he wasn't going to give up on them. He quickly realized he needed something more structured. With the help of Michael, Dr. Rodriguez, and some other members of the support group, Josh founded the Brothers in Arms project. It was simple at first, a group of veterans helping other veterans. They offered transportation to medical appointments, helped with paperwork for VA benefits, provided hot meals, and most importantly, offered companionship and understanding. Josh's transformation was visible. He had found something to live for, something that went beyond his own pain. Each veteran he helped was a small redemption, a small way to honor the memory of Marcus and all the others who didn't return. "I couldn't save them there," Josh used to say, "but I can save others here." And that mission kept him alive, kept him fighting, even on the hardest days when the nightmares still came. But there was a part of his life that was still broken: his family, Sarah, and the children. Josh had improved, but he hadn't tried to reconnect with them. The fear of rejection was paralyzing. What if they don't want me anymore? What if I hurt them too much? He shared these fears with Dr. Rodriguez. "Josh," she said gently, "you've spent the last 2 years rebuilding yourself, but part of you still believes you don't deserve forgiveness. Until you believe that, you'll never be whole." It was Michael who finally pushed him to act. "Brother, you help dozens of strangers every month. You offer hope, second chances, fresh starts. But don't you think you deserve that too? Don't you think your family deserves the chance to get to know you again, this new Josh?" And Josh knew Michael was right. He had been hiding, using his work with other veterans as a way to avoid facing the deepest pain, the loss of his family. On a Tuesday in March, 2 years after that night he almost took his own life, Josh called Sarah. His hands trembled as he dialed the number. She answered on the third ring. "Hello?" Her voice still had the power to make his heart race. "Sarah, it's me, Josh." Silence on the other end. Josh continued, the words coming out in a nervous stream. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. I know I hurt you, that I hurt the children, but I've changed, Sarah. I've really changed. I'm in therapy. I've been sober for 1.5 years. I just wanted to know if you would give me a chance to show you." Comment below, "Rebirth, if you believe everyone deserves a second chance." Sarah hesitated. Josh could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, and each second of silence felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke. "Josh, I need to think. I need to see if this is real. Call me next week, okay?" It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. And for Josh, that was enough hope. In the following months, Josh and Sarah began meeting for coffee. Short conversations at first, tense, full of uncomfortable silences. But little by little, something began to change. Sarah saw that Josh was truly different. He was present in their conversations, looked her in the eyes, asked about her life, about the children. He openly shared about therapy, about the support group, about working with brothers in arms. And Sarah began to see not the broken man she had left behind, but someone who had been broken and chose to rebuild himself. 6 months later, Sarah allowed Josh to see the children. It was the scariest day of his life. They had grown so much in the years he had been away. His son, now 8, looked at him suspiciously. His daughter, 6, hid behind her mother. Josh felt his heart break, but he didn't give up. He started with short visits, always accompanied by Sarah. He brought small gifts, told stories, played with them slowly, respecting their space. And gradually, very gradually, his children began to trust him again. It was on an ordinary day during a picnic in the park that his daughter ran and jumped into Josh's arms for the first time. She simply said, "I love you, Daddy." And Josh, holding that little child against his chest, wept tears of gratitude. He was not tainted by the war. He was healed by hope, by love, by persistence. Sarah saw it. She saw the man she loved, reborn before her eyes. And on a spring night, under the stars of Phoenix, Sarah looked at Josh and said, "I think we should try again, really." And so it was, in a simple ceremony at the same community church where Josh had found his way back, that they married again. This time, with their children holding the rings, with Michael as best man, with Dr. Rodriguez among the guests, and with a room full of veterans Josh had helped over the years. Today, in 2026, Josh Miller is a completely transformed man. Brothers in Arms has grown from a small group of volunteers into a non-profit organization that has helped over 300 veterans find treatment, housing, and hope. Josh gives talks at military bases, sharing his story with soldiers who are about to be deployed. He speaks at schools about mental health and the importance of asking for help. He works with churches to create support networks for veterans in their communities. He doesn't do this to be a hero. He does it because he knows, deep down, how close he came to completely losing himself. And if Michael's call hadn't come that December night in 2006, he wouldn't be here telling this story. So Josh lives each day honoring that second chance, helping others find theirs. The scars are still there. Josh still has nightmares occasionally. There are still days when the weight is heavier. But now he has the tools to cope. He has a family that loves him. He has a mission that gives him purpose. He has a faith that sustains him, and above all, he has hope. Josh often visits the Veterans Memorial in Phoenix. He goes to Marcus's name engraved on the stone, touches the letters, and talks to his friend. I did this for us, brother. I lived for both of us. I helped others for you, and I will never forget you. There is no more guilt in those words. Only gratitude for the friendship they had and peace in honoring that memory through positive actions. Josh's message to anyone battling their own demons, whether from war or any other battle in life, is simple yet powerful. The battlefield is behind me, but hell tried to follow me. It tried to destroy me. It tried to make me believe I was worthless, that the world would be better off without me. But I fought. I fell more times than I can count. But each time I got back up. And if I, who was literally seconds away from pulling the trigger, could rise from the ashes, you can too. War, whatever yours is, doesn't have to have the last word. You do. Because in the end, that's what this whole journey teaches us. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come easy. It requires hard work, help from others, courage to face the darkest parts of ourselves, and faith that there is light on the other side. But it is possible. It always has been possible. And if you are in this struggle now, know that you are not alone. You never have been. Look, if this story really touched you, if you stayed with me until the end of this video, leave a like below. This type of content isn't easy to create, but when I see that it connects with you, that it makes a difference in someone's life, it's worth every minute invested. And if you believe that everyone deserves to hear stories of true transformation, of real people who overcame impossible battles, subscribe to the channel, because there are many more stories like this coming, stories that will make you believe in the human potential for rebirth. And leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." I want to know that you got here, that you absorbed this message, and that in some way it touched your heart. There's a video over here that perfectly complements this topic about how ordinary people faced devastating traumas and found purpose on the other side of the pain. Click there and continue watching, because these stories need to be told and you need to hear them.